We were told Chad and Lori had changed hotels and were planning to catch a flight to Mexico. We staked out both the front and back entrance of the hotel, waited for hours. No sign of Chad, Lori, Tylee, or JJ. And then, 9 hours in, we spotted them walking out of the front lobby.
We're just wondering where you guys are headed to. You guys headed back to Idaho?
No children with them. They were very much alone. It looked like they were on their way to the beach, not the airport.
He's heading out today?
No comment.
Where are your kids? There's a lot of people who are worried about your kids. Are you guys worried about them?
They weren't answering our questions either.
Seems like...
Today we're going to discuss the Dateline episode that featured Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, and it was titled, Where Are the Children? This episode aired on Friday, February 14th, and it is now available online both in video form and in podcast form. The links for both of those are down below. Today I'm just going to give my analysis of the episode, talk about things that I picked up on, that I noticed, things that I actually learned. If you're new to this case, I'm sure that Dateline episode was... set you back in your seat. You were thinking, what in the actual hell? Is this real life? Or is this somebody making this up? Unfortunately, this is real life. This is really happening. And this case is continuing to unfold as we speak. For somebody like me who's followed this case since mid-December, I found the episode to be extremely interesting. I thought they did a great job of presenting the information. I mean, there's a lot to take in with this case. I thought they made good choices in the people that they interviewed. There was one person noticeably absent from the episode, and that is Lori Vallow's son, Colby Ryan. Participation in Dateline is purely voluntary. I'm sure he was invited and he likely declined, and frankly I don't blame him. But there's really been no explanation given as to why he didn't participate, but at the end of the day he doesn't owe us an explanation. He's dealing with enough. I found it interesting that Dateline and Keith Morrison were actually in Hawaii in January. They were doing some filming and investigating while the child protective order was being drawn up and while it was being served. That actually confirmed a suspicion that I've had for a long time, that authorities were aware that they were there. And because we know that the court order was drawn on January 16th of 2020, that was 9 days before they were served. That means at least by that date, they knew where they were so they could have those papers drafted and be able to serve her with them in Hawaii. Which means that fairly quickly, I'd say within a few weeks, they knew where Lori and Chad were, and they had eyes on them. So that's kind of reassuring. It's just not very reassuring that they didn't see any sign of the children. Of course, we hear from Larry and Kay Woodcock, which have been... They are the catalyst for this whole story being brought to the public's attention. They're also the catalyst for authorities being aware that Tylee and JJ are unaccounted for. So, of course, they were on the episode. They talked quite a bit about Lori prior to being involved in whatever the hell she's involved with now. They talked a lot about the kids. They talked about Charles, which was Lori's fourth husband. One thing I found really cool is that Kay disclosed how she was able to locate Lori, and that was because of an Amazon order. Who knew? The episode states that one night she couldn't sleep, so she got up and was kind of jacking around on the computer. For whatever reason, she logged into one of Charles' emails, and there it was, an Amazon order receipt with an address in Rexburg, Idaho. So she immediately called authorities and said, this is where they are, this is what I need to have happen. One thing that pisses me off is that according to Dateline, after authorities were alerted that the welfare check was requested, it took them a couple weeks to get to Lori's townhome there in Rexburg. A couple weeks? What the hell? Why? You cannot be that busy. If the request is made to check on children, on the welfare of children, or if the request is made to check on any person ever, that should be pretty top of the list. You know what I mean? Like, why the hell would it take 2 weeks? So I don't understand that part. It's frustrating, but that was that. One of Lori's friends that they interviewed, her name is April Raymond. I thought she was very well spoken, and I thought she did a really good job of kind of explaining, to Keith Morrison and the rest of the world how Lori was prior to getting involved with whatever the hell Chad Daybell's got going on, and how she is now. And she seems to be one of the first people that I've come across that's made any sort of statement that actually had a firm understanding of how Lori was, in her previous life, if you will, and then how she was when she showed up at her home in February of 2019. So April goes on to explain that they had met when the Vallow family originally moved to Hawaii in 2014. And she said they instantly became friends and everything was great. And she talked about Charles and how awesome he was. She went on to confirm that last year when Lori disappeared from the Vallow family home and took $35,000 of Charles's money, that she did in fact go to Hawaii. And April said, yep, she just gave her a call and was like, hey, I'm here. Do you mind if I crash at your place? Charles has gone off the rails and I just had to get away and he's cheating on me. And she's given April this big line of crap, basically. So April's like, all right, yeah, sure. Whatever I can do to help you out. Well, April goes on to explain that Lori was a lot different than what she remembered. And like I said, April's one of the first people that actually talks about how Lori how everybody knew her to be and how she had become after the fact. Because it seems everything that I've seen so far, it's either one or the other. They're part of her previous life or part of her current life. So for somebody to have insight as to really how drastic the change is, I find interesting. So she said that Lori was just really kind of all over the map and just real batty in a sense. I think the word they used, Keith Morrison suggested the word manic, and April agreed with that. She went on to explain how Lori bragged about the things that we saw in the divorce papers, how Lori bragged about canceling his plane ticket and taking his truck from airport parking. She thought that was just hilarious. And April was like, okay, whatever, man. Like April acted like she wanted no part in that. But then April goes on to talk about other things that she really didn't want a part of. April explains that Lori was going on and on and on and on about her new friends in this podcast group that she'd now become active in. April said that from what she gathered, it sounded like they were pretty much had gone off the rails. The core values of LDS were left way in the rearview mirror, and they had just kind of created their own set of rules and beliefs. She said that Lori went on to tell her that the reason why Lori came to visit her specifically is that because April's considered to be one of the chosen 144,000 people that Lori has been put on the earth now to gather and take into the new millennium. If you watch the episode, April's face, even when she's talking about it, she was like, yeah, no, I'm busy that day. I don't think I'm one of those people, but thanks for asking, just April said it made her very uncomfortable. We did also hear from Joe Ryan's sister, Annie Cushing. Joe Ryan, if you remember, is Lori Vallow's third husband. He is the father of Colby and Tylee. Now, Andy went on there and she had a lot of things to say, again, about how awesome Lori had been forever, as long as she'd known her, until the last couple of years when Lori just kind of seemed to go off the deep end. I really liked how Dateline did break it down and say that Lori was your average, normal wife, mother, person up until the last couple of years. And they brought people in. They were able to portray that in a good way to be able to show that once she was introduced to Chad Daybell, shit really went downhill for her. I've seen a lot of people call Chad Daybell a victim. No way is that dude a victim. No way, no how. In my opinion, Lori looks at him as like this spiritual advisor, like she's in awe and in worship of him. And he kind of looks at her as like a minion. That's just the way I see it. So I really like how this episode kind of pushed you into thinking that, hey, this is kind of all on Chad's shoulders. Chad's writings, Chad's teachings, Chad's belief system seems to be the catalyst for all this crazy shit that's now going on around Lori Vallow. Prior to him, all of this shit wouldn't have gone down. The amount of crazy in her life wasn't nearly to the extreme that it is right now. Now, mind you, there was some things that went down long before Chad Daybell's name even probably crossed her mind. In the big picture here, things have really changed since then. I really like how they insinuated that Chad is likely the puppet master here. Now, as far as the rest of the stuff they did in regards to Chad, I was really kind of hoping for more, to be honest with you. I wanted more information about Chad. I really did. Of course, we didn't hear from any of his children. His brother has given public statements. Of course, he didn't participate. And just like I said with Colby, everything is voluntary. You don't have to do, just because you're asked to do it and because it's happening with Dateline doesn't mean you have to be part of it. But I would have liked to hear from somebody directly related to Chad. They did have a few of his friends on there. That he'd been friends with forever since way back in his missionary days, which he did missionary work in, I believe it was northern New Jersey. And they told stories about how magnetic he was when they were younger and how people were really drawn to him. And that's wonderful. That's really great. I couldn't get a feel for what their point was. Were they saying that we're supporting whatever his teachings are today, or were they saying we don't know, like we don't really agree with that? Because I didn't really get a clear message. His one friend Benjamin that did most of the talking from that group, I don't know if it was just nerves or what, but he was just a little bit odd to me. That's just my opinion. I couldn't get a feel for what their message was about Chad.
Imagine what you would do if you had a God speak to you. You know, you would start feeling a little bit empowered. And it looks like that's exactly what happened. It's like, why would you stay in this mess of reality if the next life is better? Just.
Is this issue involved in this case?
I think it is. And that's why I'm really afraid for Lori's kids. I like to think that they're on some kind of compound in a bunker somewhere, hunkered down, safe, but it doesn't look that way, does it?
Are you condoning this, or are you... It was confusing to me. So I don't know what you guys thought about his statements. Drop a comment down below and let me know. And throughout the episode, you know, especially during the first hour, they were kind of dropping hints that Lori's brother Alex was off his rocker, which that's a fair assumption, really. Of course, as the story progressed, they started to talk about his role in the whole scheme of things here. We did get some more information about his wife Zulema, which I found interesting, that going back to April Raymond, she said that Lori spoke about her last year at this time when Lori was in Hawaii, meaning that Lori had been friends with her for quite some time. That's kind of led me down another road of speculation as far as marriages are concerned. And we're going to talk about this in another video. I'm going to just say this, and I want you guys to leave a comment down below. I'm starting to wonder if the marriage between Alex and Zulema, and even Melanie and Ian, were like arranged marriages by Chad. If his visions have graduated to the point of, you know, connecting members together and arranging marriages and maybe even arranging deaths, because Lord knows we've got a few of those going on in this case. That's just something I've been thinking about. I'd like to know what you guys think about that too, so drop that down below. Did learn a little bit more about Zulema. As the show was airing Friday night, I was watching it and getting ready to go live, but I was following the live tweets from the Dateline producer. And when they got to the part where they were talking about Zulema, check out this tweet that Dateline threw up. It says, Alex's wife Zulema advertises herself on a website as a cuddling professional and a touch expert. Seems legit, right? I don't know. Now, April Raymond said that Lori had mentioned to her that Zulema had power to control the elements and all these other special gifts that they all claim to have. So, control the elements, really? Who is she, Elsa? I mean, get the hell out of town. I can't even... Like, just when you think you've heard crazy in the story, it gets crazier, and that just continues to happen. I mean, there's so much going on in this case. Of course it's crazy. We have at least 3 mysterious deaths, a couple of attempted murders. We have 2 missing children who nobody has put eyes on since at least September. And we have Lori, who doesn't really care to disclose whether or not her children are okay. And that's just ridiculous. So to have all these crazy things going on surrounding just 2 people on this planet, that's a lot. To say that this case is complex is an understatement. There is just crazy on top of crazy on top of crazier activities, and you just can't wrap your mind around it. I think that Dateline did a pretty good job of trying to break down what's going on in this case. But if you are new to this case, and when you really start digging into the details, if you thought Dateline was crazy, hold on to your hat, because it's more insane as you get into all the fine-tuned details. I imagine that Dateline will have to do an update on this case, because there was huge interest in this case. There was huge interest in this episode, and they said it was their most watched episode in however many, whatever. You know, they gave all the stats, but this episode kicked ass. Now, overall, the episode did not disappoint. I thought they did, like I said, I've said a few times now, I thought they did a really good job presenting the story. There is one part that has pissed me off, and it's making my blood boil just thinking about it again. When the investigators are sitting there talking about the day that Charles Vallow was shot, and they're going on and on about how suspicious it was, and nobody's story lined up, and no, not exactly, they weren't telling it. We didn't get the feeling that they were being forthcoming, and this was this, and we didn't think he got hit with a baseball bat. Well, that really doesn't do a damn bit of good now, does it, when we're 8 months out, and you decided at the end of that day that it was just self-defense and we're all just going to go home. You know, wrap it up, boys, we're done. You don't get to go on national television and talk about just how weird you thought it was, but yet you did nothing further. You didn't further investigate that. You didn't follow up at all. You took everybody for their word, which nobody's words matched, and then you called it a day. And now you want to show up and talk about how suspicious it was. That, to me, is bullshit. And if that is any indication of the authorities that we have to look forward to throughout the large-scale investigation that's going on right now to locate the children, then I'm not feeling very hopeful. Let's just be honest here. I think what they thought they were going to do was go on there and just be part of the dramatic, oh my gosh, you know, this sensational story. And in effect, what they did was make themselves really look like idiots and admit to being lax that day. That's what they've done, in my opinion. And I don't know what anybody else thinks about that, but go ahead and drop it down in the comments below, because I would love to know if I'm the only one that picked up on that. Are you new to this case? Were you just totally blown away? Are you familiar with this case and still blown away by some of the details that were shown? If you are one that's going to follow this case, I invite you to go ahead and do it along with me. Go ahead and hit subscribe and check out my other videos, because I've done a lot of coverage on this case. I have a lot more content coming your way covering the different people in this story, covering different events. And we're even going to get into some of Chad Daybell's writings. I've been reading a bunch of that stuff here recently. And God, let me tell you, I have to do it in small doses. Just saying. Drop some comments down below. Let me know what you guys think about the episode. Until next time, you guys make it a great day. Take care of yourselves. Make good choices. And I'll see you when I see you. Bye.
I'm Nate Eaton here with EastIdahoNews.com, chatting with Keith Morrison, a Dateline NBC correspondent. Keith, you're getting ready for a big show tomorrow night. Where are the children? You've had a long news career. How does this story compare to the others you've covered?
It's nothing like any of it. I've been doing this for a whole long time, and no, it stands alone. In fact, we have to make sure everything's exactly right. We have any screenings, senior officers, and deputies people, and lawyers, etc. Supposed to be going on the air, and anybody who is seeing it for the first time is, what's the word, gobsmacked. They're amazed by this thing. It's a thing. I don't know what to call it. This story is a thing.
What can people expect when they watch the show? A lot of people have been following all the details, but you guys have interviewed several folks that haven't spoken before.
We have, and I think we've been able to use, or those people have helped us get caught in a way that I think hasn't been done before. I think we're able to kind of brief the whole story in one tent, and you'll see sort of from beginning to end everything to do with the story.
And you guys actually got footage of Chad and Lori after we were there with you when we confronted them in that parking lot, but your crews caught up with them a day or so after when they were looked like headed to the beach.
Well, we had heard that they were probably headed off the back, about to fly away to Mexico. They did not do that. When we eventually got, they were wearing what looked like beach clothes, and after walking along with us for a while, they went back to the hotel.
Any surprises that you found in covering this story thus far? I mean, I guess every twist and turn is kind of a surprise.
It's so disturbing. When I was reading Chad Daybell's book, and he described his what's called near-death experience, and it's the kind of thing one hears when, these things get so bad. I've heard a lot. When you begin to hear those stories, potentially you've got some trouble.
We've enjoyed working with the Dateline producers and crews and everybody behind the scene and you for the past few weeks. How common is it for you to work with local newsrooms there on the scene to put together a final report?
We do work with when we can. But if I may say that this story is a superlative that way too, because Nate, you and your people have been absolutely wonderful. The relationship we've had with you guys is so helpful. So we share materials, share breaks in the story, share ideas, and you've been tremendous for us.
The outpouring that I have heard around Eastern Idaho the past week or so, that seems like all anybody wants to talk about when they come up to talk to me. And our social media and our web traffic has been just through the roof from folks all over the world clicking for updates on this. So I imagine that a lot of people will be watching. It airs Friday night, 8 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. It's a 2-hour special, Where Are the Children? Keith, we were at lunch the other day and two ladies stopped you to say, one, that she listened to your podcast, and two, that she watched you every week. Can you go anywhere now without someone stopping to say, do the voice or something like that?
People are very, very nice. It feels like I have friends everywhere.
Well, you have friends here at Eastern Idaho, and maybe you'll be back here to cover the updates on this story. Again, you can catch the Dateline special Friday night on NBC, and then it will be posted on Dateline's website after it airs. Thank you so much, Keith. We'll let you get back to work.